The official First Crusade began in 1096 with the mobilization of well-organized and disciplined armies. The main leaders included Godfrey of Bouillon, Robert Curthose, Raymond IV of Toulouse, Bohemond of Taranto, Robert of Flanders, and Hugues de Vermandois. Godfrey of Bouillon was a prominent Frankish knight and leader of the First Crusade, originating from the region of Bouillon in present-day Belgium. In 1089, he became the Duke of the Lower Lorraine, located between Germany and France. When he heard the call from Pope Urban II, he said,
"Fellow warriors, what help can we expect from God if we, while his churches are falling, not only fail to defend them, but also remain silent and offer no protest?"
His faith in Christ was central to his identity and motivations, particularly in the context of the First Crusade, which was driven by a combination of religious zeal and the desire to reclaim Jerusalem from Muslim control. He financed his participation in the crusade largely through his own wealth, leveraging his noble status and land holdings to support the campaign. He commanded a substantial force of around 1,200 knights and an estimated 10,000 soldiers, and lead them to go to Constantinople to meet the Byzantium emperor. Robert Curthose was the eldest son of William the Conqueror and Duke of Normandy. Known for his devout Christian faith, he was recognized for his piety and made several donations to the church. His religious commitment was a significant aspect of his identity throughout his life. During the First Crusade, Robert led a considerable force of Norman knights and soldiers. It is believed that Robert's army was the same size as the army of Duke Godfrey of Bouillon. Raymond IV of Toulouse, also known as Raymond of Saint-Gilles, was a notable nobleman from southern France. His deep Christian faith and devotion influenced his actions and commitment to chivalry. He financed his role in the First Crusade with his considerable personal wealth and resources. He led about 700 knights and additional foot soldiers to Constantinople in Byzantium. Bohemond of Taranto, originally from the Norman-ruled region of southern Italy, was a distinguished noble and a key leader in the First Crusade. He financed his participation largely through his personal wealth, accrued from his family's control over the Principality of Taranto in the Kingdom of Sicily. He commanded a force of approximately 700 knights and a larger number of foot soldiers, support personnel, and non-combatants. The total number in his retinue likely ranged between 5,000 and 8,000 people. Robert of Flanders, from Norman-ruled southern Italy, was a key leader in the First Crusade. He funded his campaign with personal wealth from the Principality of Taranto in Sicily. He led about 700 knights and up to 8,000 troops on a journey to Byzantium. Hugues de Vermandois was a devout Christian and a prominent nobleman during the medieval period. As Count of Vermandois, he hailed from a powerful and influential family in northern France. Hugues was one of the leading French nobles who responded to Pope Urban's call for the First Crusade. He brought with him a substantial force, consisted of several hundred knights and soldiers. These leaders were already wealthy and did not need to wage war against the Muslims to preserve their fortunes. Yet, they chose to sell their lands and castles and journey far from home. Their willingness to forsake their comfort and wealth demonstrates profound self-sacrifice, driven by their deep faith in Christ and a resolute stand against injustice. Medieval historian William of Tyre wrote that they were great and distinguished men who, voluntarily embracing poverty, left fatherland, relations, friends, and extensive ancestral estate to follow Christ. The Crusaders began arriving in Constantinople in the spring and summer of 1096. They wished to meet Emperor Alexios I Komnenos, but the emperor felt very nervous and was reluctant to open the gates for them.
Oh my, look at them. There are so many of them. When I requested assistance from the Pope and the Christians in Europe, I never expected they would come with such a great number and massive military power. Lord Bohemond of Taranto also joined the campaign, sire. We fought against him and his father on several occasions in southern Italy. What if he defeats the Turks in our former territories and then claims them as his own instead of returning them to us?
The emperor invited all the crusade leaders to meet him.
I will not open the way for your army until you all take an oath to return any formerly Eastern Roman cities that you might reconquer from the Turks. If you are willing to do so, I will offer my support, provide you with food and supplies, and arrange transportation to Anatolia.
The leaders of the Crusaders agreed to take an oath of fealty, respecting Byzantine interests and returning any captured lands in Anatolia to the Byzantine Empire. After that, the Crusaders moved into Asia Minor, which had been ravaged and conquered by the Turks for decades. The Crusader force consisted of 600,000 people, including soldiers, knights, armed pilgrims, women, and children. When they reached Nicomedia, they were confronted with a ghastly sight. Anna Komnene describes a towering heap, vast in height, depth, and breadth, constructed entirely from the bones and skulls of the people's crusade participants. These were peasant men, women, and children who had entered Anatolia prematurely, having set out without the protection of the professional crusaders. The Turkic Sultan Kilij Arslan had sent his forces to ruthlessly massacre them.
The People's Crusade was led by Peter the Hermit, a charismatic preacher, rallied a diverse and largely untrained mob of peasants, including men, women, and children, who were driven more by fervor than military preparedness. They faced harsh conditions and brutal encounters with the Seljuk Turks.
They lacked proper support, were poorly organized, and had little chance of success against trained soldiers.
We will make sure to return the favor.
The Crusaders continued their journey to the city of Nicaea, which was at that time under the control of the Seljuk Turk Sultanate. The city had been captured from the Byzantine Empire in 1081. At that time, the local Byzantine forces were unable to effectively resist the Seljuk advance, and the central Byzantine government was too preoccupied with internal issues to send reinforcements. Therefore, the local leaders negotiated the city's surrender with the Seljuks to avoid destruction. After capturing Nicaea, the Seljuk Turks made it the capital of the newly established Sultanate of Rum, a Seljuk state in Anatolia. This posed a significant threat to Byzantium due to Nicaea's close proximity to Constantinople. For this reason, it would not have taken much effort for the Turks to march north and invade Constantinople. In the past, the resolute and fierce Turks thwarted every Byzantine effort to reclaim Nicaea. However, now Emperor Alexius had an immense crusade army to drive the Turks out of Nicaea and return the city back to the Byzantine Empire. When the Crusaders arrived, they realized that it would not be easy to conquer Nicaea. The city was heavily fortified, the thick wall encircling the city. The height of the wall was 10 meter or 33 foot tall. The wall was nearly 5 kilometers or 3 miles long in circumference. It has 114 towers from which guardmen could keep watch for enemy advancement. On the west part of the city, there is the Ascanian Lake. The only way to attack the city openly was from the west by boat, but the Crusaders had no boats, so the only option is to lay siege the city wall. Lord Godfrey and Robert of Flanders blockaded the northeastern and eastern walls. Bohemond positioned on the northern walls, and the army of Raymond of Toulouse guarded the southern walls. The leader of the Sultanate of Rum at that time was Sultan Kilij Arslan ibn Suleiman. He was not in Nicaea when the Crusaders arrived there because he was engaged in a campaign against the Danishmend princes for control of Melitene on his eastern frontier.
I know that a new Crusader army is approaching Nicaea, but I'm confident that my soldiers in the city can defeat them easily. Just a few months ago, I easily crushed nearly 20,000 of the People's Crusade at Nicomedia. The Crusaders are nothing more than a rabble of unskilled troublemakers. I have no reason to worry about them.
He would soon learn that the new masses that arrived were not peasants, but trained soldiers, among the finest in all of Europe. The Crusaders started building towers, catapult, and battering ram to attack the city. The Crusaders began constructing siege machines, including siege towers, trebuchet, and battering rams, to assault the formidable fort of Nicaea. The Crusaders attempted to breach the fortifications using battering rams at various points along the wall. However, the Muslims defended the fort by launching hot oil and fire arrows at the Crusaders, aiming to destroy the battering rams. Although they bombarded the walls with rocks, they were unable to breach them because the rocks were not large enough. Although the Muslims were able to prevent the Crusaders from entering the city, they realized that they were in jeopardy because the Crusaders continued to attack.
Go to meet the Sultan. Tell him that we desperately need his help.
Yes, sir.
When Kilij Arslan learnt that the Crusaders had besieged Nicaea, he hastened back to his army. Then marched on Nicaea with the intention to launch a surprise attack on the south wall. However, the Crusaders had already anticipated his plan. They had captured a Turkish spy in their camp and coerced him into revealing Kilij Arslan's strategy under the threat of torture. He launched his attack on the southern part of the wall, where the armies of Raymond of Toulouse and Robert of Flanders were stationed. Both sides engaged in fierce combat.
Attack!
Soon, Lord Godfrey, Bohemond, and their forces arrived to join the battle. After several hours of intense fighting, the combined army of Arabs, Persians, and Turks could no longer maintain their position. The battle lasted long into the night. Countless Muslim soldiers were slaughtered.
Wow, these troops are so much different than the peasant crusaders. I lost too many soldiers already. I better retreat now. Retreat! Retreat! Retreat!
The Sultan and the rest of his army left the battle.
Come back, Sultan. Don't leave us here to die.
Yeah, let's die together for the sake of Allah.
No way. Better safe now so I can avenge them later.
The Crusaders let them run away because they wanted to conquer the Nicaea fort.